Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Bruce, and I will be talking about ADHD, the inattentive type, which is type 1. Some topics that we will be talking about today are definitions, prevalence, and characteristics of ADHD type 1, as well as some strategies for teachers and some resources that can help both teachers and parents of children with ADHD type 1. And lastly, we will be going over some discussion questions and a short quiz. Alright, so here is the definition of ADHD type 1. ADHD type 1 is classified as the inattentive type. People and children who experience this type of ADHD express a struggle with distractions, having poor concentration, as well as poor organizational skills. Type 1 is most common in girls but can be also common in children. Children who exhibit the inattentive type show signs of boredom, having trouble listening to teachers, and seem to struggle with following directions. Here is some prevalence and facts about ADHD type 1. According to the CDC, the estimated number of children ever diagnosed with ADHD, according to the 2016 Parent Survey, is 6.1 million. This number includes 388,000 children between ages 2 to 5, 2.4 million children between ages 6 to 11, and 3.3 million children aged 12 to 17 years old. Typically, ADHD is most common in boys, but with type 1, it is more common in girls. 5 in 10 children with ADHD usually have behavioral issues. And below I have linked the page on the CDC website that talks more about ADHD and the statistics and numbers. Here's a chart from the CDC website that shows the amount of children that have ADHD in years 2016 dating all the way back to years 2003. As you can see, in 2016, there were 6.1 children who had ADHD, whereas in years 2011, it was only 6.4 million, and then in 2007, it was 5.4, and in 2003, it was 4.4 million children. Here's some characteristics of ADHD type 1. Usually, children and adults with ADHD type 1 exhibit these characteristics, which are becoming distracted easily, boredom, difficulty following directions, does not listen when spoken to, processes things more slowly, difficulty focusing on the task given, trouble with homework, and often loses the items that are needed to complete that homework, and becoming confused very easily. Here are some resources that I've found that talk more about ADHD and ADHD type 1. These resources are perfect for teachers and parents who are looking for more information and ways to better help their students and children. This first link is the Heartline website, which talks more about the inattentive type of ADHD and lists some characteristics and symptoms of that. There is also a link from the Cincinnati Children's Hospital that talks about medications and how they have done research about medications for children with ADHD. And next is the Children and Adults with ADHD website. They list support groups and other resources to help both teachers and parents. And lastly, I have linked a book to read. This would be perfect for any teacher or adult wanting to learn more about ADHD. Alright, here are some teaching strategies for dealing with children who have ADHD and ADHD type 1. First, we need to be patient because the children are already under so much pressure and are struggling as it is. In order to be more helpful to them, we need to be patient and ask what their needs are. We also need to allow plenty of time for the students to complete their work because students who have ADHD type 1 need a little extra time to process information and focus on the task at hand. Self-reflection and affirmations are important. Remind the students to care for themselves. We also need to be specific when giving instructions and remember that these students need a lot of structure. We also need to monitor the children for anxiety and depression. Mental health is important and can be a struggle for those going through this disability. And lastly, we need to have resources available for our students and be willing to talk to them and meet their needs. All right, here are a few discussion questions that you can answer on your own or with a group of people. The first question is, what can you do as a teacher to better help students with ADHD and other disabilities? Also, what are some characteristics of ADHD type 1? And lastly, do you think that medication is important for children with ADHD? Why or why not? Also, we have a multiple choice quiz, and the questions are as follows. ADHD type 1 is common in 1. Adults, 2. Teens, or 3. Children. Next, we have how many children ages 2 to 5 have ADHD? 1. 260,800, or 1,000,000, or 388,000, or 396,990. And lastly, one characteristic of type 1 ADHD is fidgeting, becoming confused easily, or cannot sit still. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope you found something helpful and informational from this and learned something new today. Thank you.